So, lady pirates, who discovered an incantation for flying? Because they're also witches.
Welcome to Keep It Fictional, a weekly podcast for book lovers by book lovers. Build your to-be-read list with Sadie, Liz, Virginia, Fiona, and Corrine from the Port Moody Public Library. Warning, this podcast contains strong opinions and may cause an increase in your library holds list. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Keep It Fictional, the book lovers podcast from the Port Moody Public Library. I am Sadie, and I will be your host today. And I'm being joined today by my book friends, Emma, Corrine, and Virginia. And today we are going to be continuing our exploration of obsessions. Last time, we visited Emma's obsession of warrior women, which inspired magic-wielding, gunslinging, sword-slashing, and spies. Now, my obsession on the outside may seem less exciting. However, don't let that fool you. What may appear unassuming on the outside could be hiding a wealth of flavor, comfort, and even excitement. I invite you all to close your eyes. Imagine you are holding in your hands a wonderfully warm mug, steam rising out of it. You inhale the subtly floral and citrus notes of a smooth Earl Grey, or maybe the spicy cinnamon and cardamom of a rich chai. Perhaps the mild, light flavor of a white tea, or the clean, grassy notes of a high-quality green tea, or even just the strong, bold smell of a classic Irish breakfast. Tea. For me, just the thought of a nice cup of tea fills me with warmth and comfort. And so, for my obsession, we are going to be talking about books that focus on tea. Now, I have always enjoyed tea. I remember when I was a kid, my parents always used to give us tea in our stocking for Christmas. I would always get lemon zinger. My sister would always get sleepy time. It was the exact same every single year. I used to put milk in my lemon zinger and it would always curdle. It was not a good situation. But anyways, I absolutely love tea. But it wasn't until I worked at a tea and coffee shop when I was living in Lethbridge, Alberta, that I fell in love with the process of tea creation and blending. Now, since leaving the job, I have veered away a bit more from that side of tea and focus more on just drinking it. But it is still very much a part of not only my daily routine, but my morning routine, my mid-morning routine, my afternoon routine, and most often my pre-bedtime routine as well. So this topic just felt like a pretty obvious choice for an obsession that is such a big part of my life. Now, I know that not all of my book friends are as in love with tea as I am, though I imagine some of them might be close. But I am very excited to see what books they have brought for today's episode. So we are going to start off with Emma today. Emma, do you like tea? And what book did you bring us today?
I do. I love tea. I don't often drink it in the morning just because I am also a coffee drinker. Like, I regrettably have coffee today. I should have brought tea for the tea episode. That was my own mistake. But I need the caffeine fix. So coffee is what I go for in the morning. But in the afternoon, and especially in the evening, I love to just kind of relax with a cozy cup of tea. My favorites are probably Earl Grey, and I love an African red rooibos tea. And I also really like genmaicha. So kind of depending on what mood I'm in, I opt for one of those. So I'm really excited about the tea book that I have today. Before I talk about it, I just want to say it's surprisingly hard to find books about tea. I think it's kind of like Warrior Women last week, where if you just search tea in the catalog, you're not going to get anything. You're going to get like nonfiction books that are about like the history of tea making and whatnot, which weren't super appealing to me, looking for something to read today. I originally chose a book that was this really dense historical fiction novel about tea ceremony in Japan, features a bit of a lesbian romance in it. So it seemed like something that was like totally up my alley. But I read some Goodreads reviews, a regrettable decision on my part. And I found out that the book had hundreds of pages of just like dense historical exposition about Western intervention in Japan. So I was like, no, I'm here for the tea. I'm here for the cozy vibes. I don't want to learn about history. So instead of choosing that book, Instead, I have a very, very cozy, beautiful graphic novel from our children's section. It's a series of books. They originally began as a web comic, which is actually available to read for free on the author's website if you're interested. And the series consists of 3 graphic novels, and it even has a companion card game to go along with it. That's really fun and wholesome and great for families and kids to play together. The rules are very easy, so it's a really fun card game that I'd highly recommend. So the series I have to share with us is The Tea Dragon Society by the author and illustrator Kay O'Neill. So just a little bit about the series to begin. O'Neill primarily writes kind of in general, their whole bibliography is kind of cozy fantasy slice of life graphic novels that are intended for all ages. So they're more geared towards kids, but they do have some mature, like emotional themes going on. And they tell simple stories about community and about home. A lot of their characters in many of their stories typically enjoy cooking and foraging, spending time with family and close friends, and other kind of woodsy cottagecore activities. And also, obviously, drinking lots and lots of tea, as is the case with the Tea Dragon Society books. So the first one is just titled The Tea Dragon Society. And this story begins with Greta, who is a young and very motivated girl who is apprenticing with her mother to become a master blacksmith. And although blacksmithing has fallen out of fashion, the weapons that are forged by her mother are mainly used as decor. Greta really wants to use her talent to create things that are really beautiful and really worthwhile. And as someone who has goblin blood, she sees it as her duty to herself and to her family to carry on the blacksmithing tradition. So on an afternoon trip to the market, Greta encounters a tiny green-colored creature that is being attacked by hungry dogs. So she distracts the dogs to rescue the creature. When she brings the creature home to nurse its wounds, her father tells her that it's a dragon, and it belongs to someone named Hesekiel. I'm not sure if I'm going to say that right. Hesekiel, who runs a tea shop that's just a little bit outside of town. So Greta goes to Hesekiel's shop, and he's grateful to be reunited with his tea dragon, who he calls Jasmine. Greta is confused when she hears this. She's never heard of tea dragons or seen tea dragons before. So Hesekiel tells her that tea dragons are very rare creatures, and they're very difficult to take care of. But they produce wonderful teas when you harvest the leaves and the flowers that grow on their horns and their bodies. Each tea dragon is very unique, both in appearance and in personality. Jasmine dragons are very watchful, they're intelligent and poised, but their high intelligence also means that they very quickly learn their owner's routines, which makes it easy for them to interfere with those routines and become pests. Ripest dragons are kind of stout and active and playful. These ones remind me of my own cat. I think of Zuko as a ripest dragon, but they're by far the most active of all of the tea dragons, which kind of makes them butt heads with the other dragons when they try to play, but they're a bit more aggressive than the other dragons are. Chamomile dragons are very sleepy, so sleepy that they often have to be woken up just to get them to eat any sort of meal. And ginseng dragons have the strongest bonds with their caretakers, but they also like to give gifts, usually in the form of food and goods that they've stolen from others. They're described as having no sense of property ownership. Yeah, I thought that was funny. After telling Greta about the tea dragons, Hesekiel offers to take her on as an apprentice and teach her the way of caring for these tea dragons. And like blacksmithing, tea dragon care is also a dying art form. And given how rare and delicious the tea they produce is, neither Hesekiel nor Greta want the practice to disappear. Tea dragon tea also has a magic property to it. When you drink it, you can share the memories that are experienced by the dragons and their owners, the dragons that tea comes from. So when Greta leaves Hesekiel's shop after returning Jasmine, his dragon that she saved, she meets a girl outside that's about her own age. She has pink hair, she looks kind of mysterious, and she has a chamomile tea dragon. So Greta asks the girl if she's also learning to care for tea dragons, but the girl doesn't seem to understand her. She only tells Greta that her name is Minette, and she runs off with chamomile. Greta later learns from Hesekiel and from his partner Eric that Minette turned up one day and doesn't really talk about where she came from. She suffers from memory loss. Prior to coming to the little tea shop, she was training to be a prophetess, and she had a great power to see into the future. One day, however, she burned herself out while training, and in order to protect itself, her mind erased all of her prior memories. When Greta learns this, she promises to Minette that if she's ever lost, Greta will come and find her. The two girls practice the care and keeping of tea dragons together with Hesekiel and Eric, brushing them, pruning them, and brewing delicious teas from their leaves. And these four people and their four dragons together become a sort of found family. Hesekiel and Eric decide to share their tea with Greta from their own dragons, Jasmine and Roibus, so Greta can see the memories that they've shared over the decades that they've spent together. Greta witnesses the two on many adventures together, slaying monsters and collecting bounties for those monsters, until one day Eric is struck down in battle. After that, she sees Hesekiel caring for Eric, who now uses a wheelchair after his accident. And Greta she better understands the depth of love and care that these two men have for each other. Greta and Minette have a similar moment in their story. When they share tea from chamomile, they are able to witness the memories that they've shared together as well, and the love that has grown between them. So this book is very wholesome, as you could probably assume from my description of it. The plot is very simple. It's not really a plot-driven story. There's not a lot of action happening, but the story isn't about the plot. It's about the love and the care that these people have for each other and how they're brought closer together over their shared love of the tea dragons. By the end of the story, they've created their own little found family, their own little tea dragon society. O'Neill themselves has stated that they want to create stories that inspire kindness and self-acceptance and social responsibility. And I think that this book captures that mission really beautifully with how the characters come to terms with their own circumstances and they love one another so deeply and care for one another. I really, really loved the diversity and the inclusivity in this book and the other books in the series. There are so many characters with different body types, with different skin tones. There are multiple LGBTQ characters and characters with disabilities. The representation of diverse bodies and experiences, in my opinion, is so important in media for kids so that they can see themselves in what they read and what they watch. The companion book to the Tea Dragon Society, called The Tea Dragon Festival, that I also read for this week, features Hesekiel and Eric during their days as young adventurers and as a young couple. And the main character of this story, named Rin here, is a non-binary character, which is very fun. There's another minor character in that book named Lisa, who is deaf and uses American Sign Language. And in the book, Rin, the protagonist, describes how them and the younger generation in their community grew up using ASL to communicate since it became so normal to them after Lisa was born. And seeing disability and gender nonconformity normalized in this way brought me a lot of joy while reading these books. So all in all, the Tea Dragon Society and its companion books and the card game as well are all very wholesome. They're very comforting and beautifully illustrated. And despite being kids' materials, I think that a reader of any age who wants something kind of charming and magical, a very cozy book, would really enjoy reading these. And since they're graphic novels, they read very, very fast. So I would highly recommend cozying up with a fresh cup of tea and checking out the Tea Dragon Society.
Wonderful. Thank you, Emma. I'm curious how the card game works, though. Have you played it?
I have. It's been a little bit, so I don't remember the rules exactly, but it kind of focuses on the four main tea dragons. It's a 4-player game. Each player gets to work with one of the tea dragons. My favorite is Roibus, so I usually use Roibus, but you can do Roibus, Jasmine, Ginseng, and Chamomile. And the game kind of moves through the different seasons, which actually kind of follows the plot of the original book. It's kind of partitioned off by seasons. And so each season you collect like little activity cards, you collect market cards. It's a kind of simple little, I think it's described as like a deck building game. Corinne probably knows more about games, and I don't know if you've played this one, so you might be able to describe it better if you have. It's kind of just like you collect little cards. You move as you collect a certain number of cards or certain types of cards, you can move through the seasons. And so the goal is to be like the first person to get all the cards to progress the season first. But yeah, we could try to get it for the library and we could play. It's really cute. It's really, really cute.
Very cool. Well, thank you, Emma. That sounds absolutely lovely and wholesome and warm and cozy and just good feelings all around. All right, we're going to go to Corinne next. Corinne, I have 2 questions for you. Are you a tea lover? And are you going to be bringing us a nice, wholesome book today?
Of course, I'm a tea lover, Sadie. You know this. You know this. You do. And to answer your second question, yes, I am. Because kind of as Emma alluded to, had a bit of a trouble finding a book just because a lot of them were like the tea plantation's wife's daughter. And I was like, I'm not really here for that. So I decided to go to one of my favorite genres. I decided to go to romance. And I fully realize and take responsibility for the fact that by talking about the plot of this book, I'm going to sound like a total loon. Every sentence is going to sound more outlandish and disjointed than the last. The experience of reading this book is kind of like a dream where your hand turns into a shark while you're at like your prom and you just are like, yes, I accept this and I have to move on, but in a book form. But I swear on BTS's Kim Seokjin's godly broad shoulders that every word that I'm about to say is true and happened and is accurate. So I think that this book really fits the theme because India Holton, the author, has said that she is fueled by tea. And her newsletter that she writes for all of her readers is called Hot Tea. So that works, as well as the title, which is The Secret Service of Tea and Treason. And lo and behold, many people do serve tea, and it serves a very important function within the narrative. It is what I didn't quite realize, the third book in a series that follows the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, the League of Gentlemen Witches, and again, as I mentioned, is the third book. Would it have helped to read the first two? No. I honestly don't think it would have. All right, here we go. Agent A has had tough assignments in the past, but helping Miss Primula Tukes picking out an outfit for Lady Hessup's soiree might be the worst assignment of her entire spy life. Carrying a mountain of hat boxes in a shop full of horrible, horrible accessories, in walks the Honorable Miss Dahlia Weekle, rival to Miss Primula Tukes, her mistress, with her new, very handsome manservant, who is strangely familiar. This is not going well as the two ladies get into an argument over a hat when they are being robbed at gunpoint. How déclassé. This is fine, but what gets really annoying is when one of the thieves takes Miss Primula Tukes' bag and runs away. And then that stupidly handsome manservant chases after the thief. Now Agent A is fully pushed into action as she must also chase after the thief, only to find the stupidly handsome manservant knocking the thief unconscious and trying to return the bag. No, give it back to him. The handsome manservant does not understand. No, he needs to take it back to his lair of the thieves where then I can track them because there's a device inside of the bag, you idiot. How annoying, how vexing. Poor Agent A, or Alice, her entire plans are thwarted by this devastatingly handsome guy wearing glasses and he has hair. All right. So Alice is Agent A, part of the Agency of Undercover Note Takers. Now put that acronym together and you have Aunt. Is that a very clever take on the man from U.N.C.L.E.? Yes, Virginia, your facial expression was exactly my facial expression. A society of secret agents who go undercover as servants to serve tea and justice. Their top agent is Agent A, who aces every single assignment given to her. Secondary only to her is the mysterious Agent B, who Alice has followed their career with great interest, but has never actually met them in person. As the attempt to track down these thieves has failed, she is called into head office and given a new assignment. But who should be sitting on the couch at her spy master's place? Oh, it's the very stupidly handsome manservant, Daniel Bixby. Oh my. They are given an assignment to infiltrate a weekend soiree of a lady pirate. Apparently, someone has devised a doomsday weapon with the intent to kill Queen Victoria. And who could accomplish this dastardly deed? Only the worst scourge of society, lady pirates. And here is where I'm going to really bring out my notes. Okay. So, lady pirates. There are two rival societies, the Wisteria Society of Lady Pirates and the Wiccan League of Gentlewomen, women pirates, who discovered an incantation for flying because they're also witches. Okay. Okay. And usually in the past, they used their powers for like dainty little lady things. But then they also can use this incantation to create and ensorcel flying castles that they zoop around in and then shoot cannonballs at each other and steal treasure. And there's a rivalry between them that happened at a book club. Yep. Okay. So just track that, which now makes like the little castle on the front cover of the book way more sense. But everyone kind of gets around via flying domicile that is like tied to their souls, but also like there's a wheel. Okay. Jane and Frederick Fairweather. Jane is a dastardly lady pirate, and they all have useless husbands, which, sure. Zoop around in Starkhorn Castle, and somewhere in this castle is hidden the secret weapon. But in between, they just invited all of their lady pirate friends that like stab each other regularly to play croquet and enjoy dances and have tea. And there we go. So it turns out that the stupidly handsome manservant is none other than Agent B. And their spy master has given them the assignment to go undercover as a married couple to find the weapon. But maybe they'll find more than that. So this is a rivals to lover comedy, historical fiction, fantasy, romance. It was one of the best romances of the year, according to Library Journal. It was on BuzzFeed and Amazon lists as very, they were very much looking forward to this. This book has a lot of fans. It's got a great trope. Fake married. Fake married is always good. Fake married is always good. It happens so infrequently in real life that it would. There's spies and secret agents. It's very whimsical. So whimsical. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean meets Porco Rosso. At this point, I was just like writing things of trying to like redeem myself in terms of sounding like a person who understood the world. And I think I came up with a pretty good one. It's like a horny house moving castle. So yeah, it is all of those things. Okay. The really cool thing is that the main character, Alice, is neurodivergent. So the author has autism and writes a main character with autism, which I thought was really cool. And I did kind of like Alice and Daniel. They're very rigid. They're described as that several times, and I get it. They really love the rules of the agency, and they love like proper society, which is very funny because this is essentially like a fantasy of manners. So it is meant to be very tongue-in-cheek. It is meant to be very funny, kind of like Soulless by Gil Carriger, Freya Marskell, Sencho's, C.L. Polk. It's kind of taking the kind of like trappings of Victorian or like a Regency romance and then kind of like overlaying it with humor or something else. And so like that was fun. But I have one more. It's kind of like a literary Looney Tunes. And I did feel like I was slowly losing my grasp on reality as I turned every page because it was like, okay, witches, cool. And also flying castles. And we're going to just like get from point A to point B in a flying bungalow. Okay. Again, this is a book. Lana Harper, who blurbed it, said that there is no literary experience quite like reading an India Holton book, and I would strongly agree. I'm gonna say I didn't hate this. I just think it was not for me. It was not for me, but I can definitely see how it is for some people. And if any of that sounded rational and sane to you, I would definitely suggest you pick out this book and enjoy perhaps the first 2 books first, and then slowly ease yourself into the third one. Yeah, I would recommend a strong, bracing, like Russian caravan tea when you drink this, just to kind of pull you back to reality.
I was with you, and I was going to say that sounds really great until the flying castles and the lady pirates, I have to say. That kind of just...
And like the lady pirates, I was like, okay, like lady pirates with useless husbands, whatever. But they're like theme ride pirates. They're like swashbuckling each other in like everything. They're like trying to kill each other. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like a good time. But yeah, they're like actual like stereotype pirates, like Avast mateys, I'm shooting a cannonball through your front table and like pillaging and stealing. It was so bizarre.
Yeah, that seems like a lot. Just a lot of things in one. Many things. Maybe you could read the first book for our genre mashup episode, because that feels like a lot of genres mashed up together.
Well done. Again, I want to say that it's very well done. It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. And maybe it was the time of day that I was reading it, or like the time of frame that I was mentally in, but I was like, what is happening?
I would say Swashbuckling Flying Pirates is definitely more of like a mid-morning kind of read. Yeah. Well, thank you, Corrine, for bringing us that. We are going to move on to our existential question. Now, I posed this existential question to my book friends yesterday so that they had a chance to think about it, because I feel like this might require some thought. The question I am posing is, if you were a tea, what tea would you be? Now, this isn't what tea you would like. It is, what tea would you be?
So are we like transformed into tea leaves to be consumed? Like, what's the context? Am I being consumed? Is that what happened?
I would say probably not. If you could just if your personality, think of like BuzzFeed quiz time, which there is one for this. And I took the quiz before we started today. Emma, I found one and I did take it. Yeah. And so like, if your personality was a tea, what tea would that be?
I can go first. Since in my book, each of the tea dragons is kind of given their own personality traits. So I was reading through, the back of the book has each tea dragon and little descriptions about them. So I was reading through this to see like, oh, which tea dragon would I be? Because that's the type of tea that I would be. And conveniently enough, my favorite tea is rooibos tea, and I identify most with the rooibos dragon, which is the dragon I usually play as when I play the games. I think it's kind of fitting because when we had the what dinosaur would you be question, I said I was a triceratops, and I think this tea dragon kind of looks like a triceratops. He's the one that's a little bit stout, an active little tea dragon, likes to go on little adventures and play with the other tea dragons, especially when the other tea dragons don't want to play with it. And it reminded me quite a bit of my cat Zuko, who's kind of a stocky little guy who loves to play and play aggressively. And given that rooibos is also one of my favorite types of tea, I would say that I would be a rooibos tea or a rooibos tea dragon.
Well, I don't drink tea, as you all know. I've said it 1,000 times. So thank you for doing the question ahead of time, because I let you a lot of reading about what. I know the types of tea because my husband drinks it, but he's not it's not any help because he's a very much a black tea person. He's all kinds of black tea, but not anything else. So I'm just like, okay, well, just like you said, Sadie is making this up. Okay, these are the tea characteristics, and this is how I'm going to justify it. So I think I'm going to pick pu'er tea because it's supposed to be dark. It's supposed to be the only tea that Chinese people consider to be black tea. So dark and black. Okay, so that's one. It is supposed to be made from trees that are sometimes 1,000 years old. So I'm the oldest here by far, so old. And then it said that you have to wait. You have to wait a long time for them. Very often you're waiting for them to age, the tea leaves to age, and the longer the better, or whatever. And I feel like I'm justifying as that. That's kind of me in some ways, because I think it takes a long time for other people to know me, because I'm not very talkative. I don't like to, say things, so that people just who the hell are you? Who are you? So it does take a very long time. But I think the people, as they say, the people who appreciate them in the end will appreciate the tea, but it just takes a while. So there you go. So there's that. I don't know. And what else did they say? It's a compress. It comes sometimes in a cake form, so it's so it's then you just have to pick at it. So I guess that's again kind of my personality. Again, What else have we got? It's the flavor is supposed to smoky, pungent, bitter. Again, sounds like me. So that's where I'm going with. So yes. And then I guess also the first thing that came to my mind was because at a certain now online only tea vendor that is no longer available, they used to have a pu'er tea that is called coffee pu'er tea, and I definitely bought it because I'm like, hey, it's coffee. I can just pretend this is coffee. So there. All right.
I truly appreciate the amount of thought that you put into that, Virginia. I think that maybe as a non-tea drinker, you had to put more thought and more effort into that question. So I do appreciate that.
So like psychologically revealing. Dang. I went with, because I feel like as the tea dragons do, like different teas have different personalities. So I wanted to find like a mix of green and black tea because I feel, and I mean, this is everyone. It's like sometimes you have kind of like conflicting parts of your personality. Like sometimes I'm very loud, sometimes I'm very quiet. Sometimes I like to be around people, sometimes I don't. So I wanted to kind of like get both things in like a mix that kind of works well together. And so Murchie's has a blend of a green and black tea that they call the library blend. So I thought that worked quite well. I love my books. I love my library, and a library must have moments of like loudness and busyness and moments of quiet reflection as well.
Thank you, Corinne. I like that. Now, me and BuzzFeed agree on this. It was confirmed this morning. So I chose mine, and then I took the quiz and it was confirmed. I was tempted to go with a chai because it's my favorite kind of tea, but I don't think I'm that spicy. I'm not that spicy. So I just went with a classic, comfortable, familiar Earl Grey. So I think that is sort of me. I am open, I am comforting, I'm calming. Sometimes I'm familiar, and yeah, just a nice classic Earl Grey. Well, thank you everyone for weighing in on that fun topic. All right, I am going to go next. So I was actually quite torn for which book to pick for today's episode. I, unlike others, actually had a few books on my read list already that fall under this category. And kind of after looking at those ones, I narrowed it down to two. One that I just finished last week, and one that I actually read quite a few years ago, but I absolutely loved it. Now, what made my choice was the genre of the book. I feel like it's been a while since I have just talked about a straight historical fiction. So I decided to go with the historical fiction because I always talk about YA fantasy, and I felt like I did not need to bring another one to the Keep It Fictional roster. So I decided to go with The Tea Rose by Jennifer Donnelly. This takes place in London in the year 1888. Fiona Finnegan and Joe Bristow are in love and always have been. They've grown up together in East London, and while they have never been rich, they've always had each other, and they know that will always get them through. Now at 18, Fiona works as a tea packer for the Burton Tea Company. Well, she doesn't mind her job. The company is well known for its low wages and horrible working conditions. Joe is a costermonger for his family's small business selling fruits and vegetables along the street. But Fiona and Joe share a dream for the future, a future of opening up their own tea and grocery shop, selling the highest quality tea leaves, produce, and other grocery items. They've both been saving as much as they can, hiding it away until they have enough to start their lives. Lives which they hope will be a bit more than the poor, hard existence that their parents have lived. Now they're close to realizing this dream when things take an unexpected turn. Fiona's father, a dock worker, is being encouraged to help lead the dockers in support of a labor union, which, as you can imagine, is not a very popular position to be in, according to the company owners. When he slips on grease and plummets out of a window to his death, Fiona and her family are forced out of their house and into the dingy, run-down slums of Whitechapel. To make matters worse, Joe has caught the eye of Millie Peterson, a young socialite who's vowed to do anything to steal Joe away from Fiona. Well, Fiona doesn't put much stock into these threats, as she knows that Joe's feelings for her will never change. she doesn't truly realize the lengths that Millie is going to go to make Joe hers. Millie corners Joe alone during an event, ensuring that the two of them will be found together, calling into question Millie's virtue and forcing Joe to marry her. Devastated by Joe's betrayal and her father's death, Fiona is lost. Her life is thrown even more into disarray when her mother is murdered by none other than Jack the Ripper. Having stumbled upon him killing their neighbor, the famous serial killer goes after her too, leaving Fiona's family at a loss of how to go on. Fiona is spurred into action when she decides to request compensation from William Burton, who's the owner of the Burton Tea Company, for her father's death. When she arrives at the warehouse, she overhears Burton and another man discussing how they had murdered Fiona's father because of his involvement with the labor unions. Shocked and afraid, and really one more tragedy stacking onto Fiona's life, Fiona flees, grabbing $500 off of Burton's desk as she leaves. Fearing for her life and no longer having any family or connections left in London except for her toddler brother, Shamie, Fiona decides that it's time for her to leave. Retrieving Shamie from their neighbors, Fiona rushes the two of them to the docks with the hope of boarding a ship that will take them to New York, where her uncle Michael lives and runs a shop of his own. However, a young woman traveling alone with a child, she quickly realizes that in this world, she is not going to be given the same freedoms that she would have if she was a man. And so she is forced to beg the help of a reputable-looking gentleman, Nick Soames, asking him to buy their tickets and pretend to be her husband for the journey. He surprisingly obliges, and throughout the journey, the two begin to connect more. Fiona learns that Nick was recently disowned by his wealthy father because he is gay, and that he too is fleeing London after the love of his life, Henri, was killed. When they arrive in New York, Fiona is once again shocked to find that her uncle is drunk and in debt, having lost his shop because he could no longer afford it. Instead, though, of relying on him for support, Fiona decides that it's time that she made her own way. And so she starts to figure out how she's going to rebuild her uncle's shop and maybe one day build it up into the tea empire that she has always dreamed of. As her life in New York develops and grows, Fiona wonders if she will ever find her way back to London, and if she will ever see Joe Bristow, her one love, again. This is a sweeping historical love story, reaches not just across decades, but across oceans and worlds. The main focus is definitely on Fiona, focus on kind of her creating her own life, becoming a strong, successful businesswoman, the story of how she is able to build her life up and become extremely, extremely successful. However, we do also get glimpses of Joe's story, and we see where his life is taken while Fiona is in New York. The whole book, the reader is definitely hoping that the two will find each other again and that love will prevail in the end. I read this book quite a while ago, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to revisit it too much before the episode, but I do remember absolutely loving it. Just the way that characters are created. Fiona as a protagonist is really sympathetic and strong protagonist, and you're definitely rooting for her even with all of the horrible things that she has to go through. I think it's one of those stories where by halfway through, you're thinking, can something possibly go wrong again? Like, is there going to be one more thing that's going to go wrong? And could she please just have a tiny, tiny little bit of hope and happiness in her life? This is the first book of the series, and it's a series of 3. And then there was actually just a novella released last October that I have not read, but that tells the story, I think, of her Uncle Michael and kind of follows his story a little bit in the same world. And that's sort of what each of the books do. The first one is very heavily focused on Fiona and Joe and their story. The next ones, while they are still a part of the story and still a part of the world, each book focuses on a different kind of tangentially connected character and tangentially connected storyline. to these families, these two families and these two characters. The books are quite involved. The Tea Rose itself comes in at 675 pages. So it is definitely not the book for someone who enjoys a quick jaunt into the past. But if you are looking for kind of those family saga, those family stories, big kind of love story, then I think that this would be the kind of book. So if you want something epic, if you want a little bit of heartbreak, a little bit of murder, a heavy dose of like lady boss energy, because I think Fiona just like really brings her I'm the boss and I got this figured out energy. And there's quite a bit of tea. Her entire life is focused around creating a tea empire and a tea business. So yeah, if all of those things are appealing to you, then I think that The Tea Rose by Jennifer Donnelly is definitely a book for you. All right. We are ending our episode today with our non-tea drinker. So Virginia, I don't need to ask you the question of if you are a lover of tea because we already know. But did you find it easy to find a tea book today? And what book did you bring us?
I think like everyone else, it was hard to know how much tea it is going to be in the book, right? Like, I mean, they can say this about tea, but is it really about tea? I don't know. So yeah, so that was tricky. And I think I'm just like, well, I found one that I had already. I'm like, I'm just going to go with this and hope for the best. But my book today is called The Tea Master and the Detective. And of course, chose this again because it has got the word tea in the title, but also because a cup of tea is why our two characters met. Long Chow is getting ready for a trip, and she's going to do some field work for her research. The place she's going to is known to be quite dangerous. It kind of messes with your mind. And for her research, she needs to stay lucid. She needs to keep a clear head. And that is why she's here at the tea master's place, asking for a special blend of tea. The tea master is known to provide a blend that is unique to every individual. It's never the same. And once she learns why you want the tea, she will do a detailed analysis of your current health and your body composition. And then she'll customize and personalize that blend of tea just for you. So after listening to Long Chow describes what she needs, the tea master took a look at Long Chow and realizes that Long Chow is already filled and pumped with drugs. Long Chow mentions that, well, I need these to keep me going every day, but the tea master not interested in the why. She's just only concerned about how all these chemicals is going to interact with the tea that she is supposed to brew. These drugs is going to complicate things. There's just too many variables. It's really hard to tell and make sure that Long Chow's body is going to be compatible with whatever sort of that is already there. And it is kind of risky. And the tea master almost didn't want to take this job, just almost going to say, you know what, maybe you can find someone else to do this. But she kind of have no choice because she is good at what she's doing, but it's not like clients are lining up to pay for her tea. She needs money. She needs to pay rent. So she can't really refuses this. So she reluctantly agrees to brew Long Chow a cup of tea. Not only that, this tea master is a responsible professional. Once again, against her better judgment, she offers, for a fee, of course, to accompany Long Chow on her journey, just so that she can keep an eye on her, making sure that nothing bad happens. There's no side effects, no strange reactions once Long Chow gets to her destination. She really just hoped that Long Chow would be okay. There's too many variables and she's worried. This arrangement sounds fine to Long Chow because, she realizes she can actually save some money since she doesn't really have to pay for a ride anymore because the tea master is a spaceship. No, I didn't mean that the tea master has a spaceship. The tea master is a spaceship. This book is set in the Suya universe created by Aliette de Bodard. It is a Vietnamese-inspired world. And so we have humans like Long Chow, and then we have sentient spaceships like our tea master, known as the Shadow's Child. And in this universe, they are called mind ships. And the minds are first sort of grown inside a human being, and then they're implanted into spaceships. Long Chow is looking to go into deep space. She's hoping to study the effects of deep space on humans, especially those scary negative influences that might prove fatal to some human beings. And she hoped that if she can learn more, maybe she can come up with some solutions to make going into deep space a little less dangerous. So she's there to do some work on that. She figured she'll go there, she'll find some stranded like spaceship, and then she'll look for some dead bodies, bring one back and try to study it and see if she can figure out what are the things that overwhelm a human being when they get into deep space. The Shadow's Child, our tea master, is not really keen on going to deep space because she has never quite recovered from her last time when she was there during the war. And she's hoping that this is going to be a quick trip, like just in and out. She can go back home as soon as possible. Once they arrived at the destination, they went and looked at some dead bodies. And Long Chow pointed at one and said that one, we're going to take that one home. Why this particular one? Asked the Shadow's Child. Well, this one is different. I don't think they died like all the others. They weren't killed because they couldn't handle deep space like all the others that are here. So if deep space didn't kill this person, then who or what did? The Tea Master and the Detective is one of the few novellas that are set in this universe. It is definitely science fiction. Like if you go onto the author's website, you see like a whole timeline of historical events that has taken place allegedly prior to all these stories in space that sort of inform the world and how it has developed. It's really interesting read if you are interested in sort of alternative history and just to see how she decided to create some of these events. The earlier works are novellas, but recently she has also added 2 full-length novels to the universe, which I think will be appealing to some of my book friends. The first one is called The Red Scholar's Wig, which is about lesbian space pirates. And then the second one is called A Fire Born of Exile, and it is a sapphic Count of Monte Cristo in space kind of story. So this particular novel is billed as a gender swap Sherlock Holmes and Watson story. So the heart of the book, of course, is a mystery regarding this dead body that I mentioned earlier and, what killed it. And then also very much about Long Chow, which is our Sherlock Holmes, and then the Shadow's Child, our tea master, which is Watson, and the building of that relationship. And as you can expect, Long Chow is quite sure of herself. She's not interested in explaining things. She doesn't think that she needs to be accountable to anyone else. And their relationship definitely gets rockier and rockier as the tea master starts to suspect that there is something shady in Long Chow's history, and she's not really sure whether she should continue to help Long Chow or not. And Long Chow is not interested in explaining to her like sort of what happened. So her suspicions just keep going, getting bigger and bigger. And whether it is by choice or maybe by the limitation of a 96-page novella, like Aliette de Bodard did not really handhold her readers on the world. There's never any kind of long expositions about how the universe works, which for me, I really appreciate. That's kind of usually my preferred way of getting information about a science fiction or a fantasy world. I don't like the long explanation. I like to learn about it as you go, as you interact with those characters, as you interact with the story. But having said that, I do wish there's just a little bit more, maybe not a lot, but just a little bit more, because I'm trying to figure out sort of get a better sense of the universe, and also kind of want to learn a little bit more about the Vietnamese influences that she pointed out on her website and that she was very clear on. This is a Vietnamese kind of culture that we're looking at. So I would like to kind of learn a little bit more. How much tea is in it? Well, it's 96 pages. So, I can't say that it is very much about tea, but it is a key element in it. Like I said, it started the whole story. And also that there's a few scenes in the book where like the characters sit down and they will have a cup of tea as a way of like introducing each other, and then meeting new people, or even just like as a way, like, as I think Sadie pointed out in the intro that, just when you need some comfort, this is like, I guess that's why people like to sit and, enjoy a cup of tea. So I am curious to see what those other books are like that are set in this universe. If you're interested in some sort of genre hybrid, we have like mystery and also science fiction, check out The Tea Master and the Universe by Aliette de Bodard.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Virginia. I think that we have definitely represented 4 very different genres with our books today, which is always a nice to bring, I think, provide lots of options for people, no matter what kind of book you like. Well, that is the end of our episode. I do encourage everyone to go have a cup of tea, and whether you are an active rooibos, a bitter and pungent pu'er, a cozy and comforting Earl Grey, or a quiet and loud green and black blend, I encourage you to enjoy your tea today and every day. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for another episode of Keep It Fictional. We will see you next week. Have a good day.
Thank you for listening. If you like our show, please tell a fellow book lover about it. You can find a list of all the books we discussed in our show notes. Join us next week for another fun book chat. Until then, keep it fictional.